So what brings you to Chicago?
We are constantly told we have to build our brand to be successful. However, all we really need to do is tell our story. In this episode, we talk with musician, artist, and community builder Martin Atkins. Here is his story. This is unBRNDed.
This is badly printed, but we make our own lamps and, yeah.
So where does that come from? Wanting to do it yourself instead of going through another company?
Well, it would be easy to say that's part of punk, but actually I started screen printing when I found a bunch of screens. Like this screen printer, I guess, this screen printer went out of business. So I'm driving, I was in New Brunswick, New Jersey at the time, and I see these 2 or 3 towers of screens. And I didn't think, I'll start my own screen printing thing. I thought my friend Paul told me how expensive it is to buy canvas stretcher frames because he's an artist. I'm like, these are perfect for him. So I thought, well, I'll take 30, and I went back and I did 3 trips. I got all these screens. And then I started to look at the screens and see the different things that the screens were for. Uh-huh. And the first shot I printed is over there underneath that jacket. You can just see the F-bombs on the bottom.
Oh, is it like that one that's in the back?
That's the second screen. And then I started my record label and we couldn't afford sleeves. We could only afford vinyl in a die-cut sleeve. So I screen printed shopping bags. So I'm making shopping bags out of desperation and lack of money. But then the album in the shopping bag goes in the rack with the vinyl and the handles are sticking up. So people go in and grab it. And it's all just accidents. But I like to keep hammering that point home instead of, I'm sure there are some people in my position like, that was the genius of the shopping bag thing, or this or that, right? The test department scenery, the only constant thing is change. $80 for 6 of them. We just didn't have any money for scenery. It's the cheapest thing we could possibly think of. It was a complete accident that when light hits the paper, shadows are formed. So the band are on stage, stripped to the waist, banging, sweating, and as the lights change color, they change position, and these words are going across their bodies. People are coming up to me crying, the set design, and I'm just like, yeah. But it's a complete $80 accident. So the more of the stuff you do, I guess it's part of my process. Like, okay, what can we print? What can we do with our time and energy and creativity that money can't buy? Because we don't fucking have any. So, and then you get the Killing Joke scenery with the dollar bills. That's just one screen. Going all the way to this pig face scenery, which is 12 people, 18 screens, 3 days. But I don't know what it would cost to have somebody design and execute that. It cost us like $4,000 just in costs to do it, with the fabric and the ink and the fireproofing and the glow-in-the-dark ink and all the screens we had to make.
I always forget about that because you have to do a lot of that, all the stuff, because it's going on stage and over and over and over again.
And they don't let you hang it if you don't have the certificate. It's like, fuck, really? Yeah. And you have to recertify every 2 years. So it's like, come on.
Well, I think that is a fantastic way to kind of start this. I mean, this podcast is inside of the promotional products industry, and everybody in there, or the majority of them, are small business entrepreneurs, and they're constantly looking for ways to feed their family as well as make money for the business, right? So, I mean, did music like this and trying to make money from music come because you wanted to make money for your family, or was it just because this is what you wanted to do?
I think you'll find, it's a good question. I think you'll find the people who are really doing it just don't have a fucking choice. Am I okay with my language?
Yes.
Okay. They just, I can't help myself but print on stuff, you know. And when my band plays, it has to be a spectacle. Like, otherwise people could stay home. I understand the spreadsheet. When I have 3 bass players and 5 drummers, right? It's not just a lot of drums. I know people who could bring drums, you know. I could do a Facebook appeal. But now the sound guy is getting a little bit upset. Now, even if 5 drummers are all happy to play for free, to be part of the spectacle, everybody needs drumsticks. Maybe 3 of them need new snare heads. Next thing you know, we're $500 in. And it's like, how much of a spectacle do I want to create? But I think for me, I've gotten better and then good at like, okay, this is fucking insane. How can this pay for itself? And the question I asked myself when we had 18 people on the road with Pigface, most big bands now, it's 2 guys and a screen and a, hey, you know, Pigface is 20 guys, 20 guys and 10 more people. But it's like, how is the solution to this big crazy problem I've made contained within the big crazy problem I've made? So, and that's a couple of ways I can tell you about. One is, and I like to, this usually starts with me hysterically talking to myself, right? Like, what have you done? What have you fucking done? You got people, Danny Carey from Tool, Randy Blythe from Lamb of God. You got all these people from all over the world, and now what are you going to have it, right? But then I start to, you got all of these people, they're all here in this one room. Okay, hold on. Double live album, right? How can I solve the problem of this thing using the thing? Well, let's memorialize it with a double live album. Okay, and the way, and now we get into supply chain shit. So now the album's not going to be ready for 4 months. It's got to be mixed, edited, mastered. But we're 10 days before the last show in Chicago. 10 days before, I get on the phone to my guy Bill, who put this kind of weird collage photograph together. I'm like, could you go to M13 Graphics and print some 11 3/4 by 11 3/4 photo cards? And there's one around somewhere. And get like 300 or 200. I don't remember how many we got. And then we sent somebody to Blick Art Stores, gold foil pen, black Sharpie, all like, you know, get me 50 pens. And at the show, in the dressing room, with all these people from all over right, Molly, who did this, she's my assistant at the time, put 2 piles of the cards and 2 piles of pens. And I thought, if we get 50 of these signed by everybody, that would be good. Because you've got, like, it's always great to have the Rolls Royce version and the regular version and the free streaming. And like, oh my God. So you forget it's a different time now than it used to be 20 years ago. I'm not autographing. What's the, you know, Danny Carey sits down, Randy Blythe sits down and talk. Everybody's just talking, and there's fruit, and somebody brought us some cheesecake, which is the last thing you want before, like, we're about to do a show. Who wants cheesecake? And people just like, they're just talking and just sign. I'm like, everybody signed every one of these cards. So then I can take that and dynamically price those. So you've got, I don't know how many we did, 500 maybe, double live album. It's hand screened. So we print the jackets, nice photographs inside the gatefold sleeve. The outside is blank on reverse cardstock. And so we go downstairs, we open it up. It's a bit weird on the spine, but we got away with it. We might have printed the spine, I don't remember. But now it's 2-color, hand screened, signed, numbered, maybe glow in the dark, double album, and 200 of them are signed by everybody. So that became, and I think that album might have gotten the tour to 0. You know?
Yeah.
1,000 albums at 60 a piece.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I went in the hole on that stuff. But the other thing, if I can keep going on this road,
Yeah.
so you've got this huge, crazy scenery, and this is from 2016. You could see all the way on the back right here, and all the way in the back there. It's 22 feet high. I mean, it goes up across the ceiling and back. So you play a big venue with 1,200 people. We own the fucking stage, all the way left to all the way right, floor to ceiling. It's not the biggest banner you can get from FedEx. Fuck that shit. It's ridiculously huge. When the lights go down, the hands glow in the dark. The bugs glow in the dark. So there's a theatrical part of it, right? But we cut this up and sell it. But this is stuff I've been doing for a long time. If you see over there, we call it the dot screen Madonna. To the left of the only constant thing has changed, the panels of Madonna. Well, that's deliberately panels with, 4 inches between. So an idiot can cut in an okay fashion between 2, and then they can be stretched and framed. And they look gorgeous framed. When you look up close, the artwork is fucked. It's badly. We did it in the alley. One screen, simple one screen, and then instead of going, oh God, what about the halo? I went down this road of like, how am I going to line up the halo screen on top of the? I'm like, well, I just got a bucket of yellow and walked all over it in the alley and did the halo with the brush. It took 20 minutes to do 5 of those banners 20 feet high, and the heart is red and sloppy as hell, you know. So the idea of that was that at the end of the tour we'd cut it up and sell it, and we sold at the time at the end of the tour individual pieces for 125. So with 5 of those banners, that's 12.5 grand. You know, now I want to make this point because I don't know if your listeners are business, art, whatever. But I use the monetary thing just to keep track of breaking even, but also I'm going to make huge, insane art. It's my way of justifying it to a business person who's like, fuck art, you know, right? When I was doing this in 2016, even with 12 volunteers, somebody donated a hanger for us to make it in, you know. But then other stuff starts to kick in. When you do big, interesting stuff, it's content, right? If what I was doing was, oh, I wrote a check to FedEx, they're going to do a big banner, it should be here tomorrow. That's not content, right? But when you get 12 people to come with you to a hangar, right? So we lay out these 6 pieces of fabric, 22 feet. Fortunately, one of our team sets a little time lapse. And you see, it's 6 hours. And it's like, and it's beautiful to watch this being made. And at the same time, the sun is coming through the windows in this hangar. And so the sun sweeps across, which marks the passage of time. And it memorializes all of these 12 people helping. But then you put that on Instagram, it's like, what the fuck's going on? Oh, we're going on tour. You're answering a question that's been asked rather than saying, my band's going on tour. Desperately waving a flag. Yeah, everybody's on tour, you know. We got a new song. Everybody's got a new song. Like, what are you doing that's different? But there's a story with this. So it's 2016. So how old was I then? Like 58, maybe 50. I'm going to be 65 in August. And I've got 4 kids, 2 buildings in Chicago. And, I mean, as we're making this, and there's 18 separate screens, right? Which is even getting a deal on aluminum screens. We're shooting the screens. It's a lot. And I'm saying to myself, what the fuck are you doing? What do you, like, why don't you fucking grow up? Ooh, you're making this huge scenery, you fucking idiot. You've got 4 kids, you're teaching, you're writing books, and you get paid to speak, and oh, here we are. Ooh, who's got the snail screen, or who's got the hand? And then I get an email. In 1992 or 93, I was in your office. It used to be on Wabash Avenue, behind where Reggie's is now. And we talked about, I don't know what, something. And behind your desk was a piece of the original Gub scenery. This is from an album called Gub. The original Gub scenery was behind your desk. And I've been thinking about it ever since. And it would complete my collection. Is there a chance that art is available? I'm like, I don't know I don't care where, I'll fucking find it. But, so then comes the difficult part. I respond, dude, I don't even know. This is a long time ago. And even if I could put my finger on it, I got to say, dude, I don't know if I'd be willing to part with that. I'll fucking part with it in a fucking, But now I'm art gallery owner, yep. Right? And that's art to have like, oh my God, praise the Lord. Someone his Elvis on a parachute with a bag of cash. And I found a piece that in the car park where we were making this, and I'm questioning everything that I'm doing. He met me in the car park because he lived north, and the hangout is like up by Montrose, like 2112 on the blue line. I'm like, well, why don't we meet in the car park there and we'll do this exchange, And I think this guy paid me $2,500-3,000 for a piece the size of a single bed sheet from the original crazy shit I did in 1990, right? I still have a couple of pieces of that original scenery. So, I mean, I know I own this museum, but and this might have been the seed that I planted in myself. I try and tell bands or brands, you've got to do this stuff. Because if you don't have the stuff to give to people, to fuel your own stuff, no one else is gonna. No one else is gonna do, So if you just do the crazy shit, you'll have that crazy shit, especially the way the internet is now. 10 years ago this, 5 years ago that. So I'll say to a band, you're playing a show next week. It's a small venue, it holds 50 people. You've sold 42 tickets. It's going to sell out. You've got to sell 8 more tickets. It's going to sell out. Do you need to do a poster? No. Do you need to do a hand screen glow in the dark? No. Yeah, I'm like, you fucking do. You don't need it for the show. You need it for a year anniversary of the show. You need it for 10 years after. Like the dollar bill scenery I made for Killing Joke. We need it. It's on the screen back there. You can see it. We needed it for the video, but I also needed to do that crazy thing to have the screen to reprint it for the pop-up we did. Yep. Like, you need this stuff. Like, there are pieces behind me. I'll just show you this. It's easier because it's right here. This is a tour we did in 1990 with Ministry. it's on the screen. We played behind a cage. Well, I ended up with the cage, and there's a piece over there that's made from the cage. So I cut it up, and at the time, 20 years ago, we did an album, Ministry Covers, tribute to Ministry. And if you sent in this little postcard, I'd send you a piece of cage. I didn't think it through. It was not cheap to put, yeah. But now I might have 10 pieces of this left.
Wow.
But I talked to my friend Daryl Hers. He has a convention, Indie Week, that he does up in Toronto. And I saw him at South by Southwest like 8 years ago. And we just talked. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe. I mean, we get along great. It's like, and he told me he was at the Cage Tour in 1990. Couldn't believe it, and blah blah blah. And I had one of these pieces in my bag, and I'm like, hold on a minute. I went up to my room, came back down, and I'm sure he was thinking, here's my new album. I'm like, here's a piece of the cage. He was talking about it last week, and this was 10 years ago, 8 years ago. I gave him this piece of the cage. So, if you've got to create your own shit now, and I know maybe some people don't want to make stuff themselves. They don't feel as though they have the skill level. I mean, I don't think that matters. Like if you feel free to take a couple of pictures of Dot Screen Madonna. She looks amazing, like almost Warholian from here. You get up close, it's a disaster. Like right? But people don't care. If you're authentic and like, here's this box I made to hold the thing. Like, oh, okay. Nobody's going, excuse me, the dovetail joint is amateur. They want to help. They want to, if your brand has got anything going for it, then your fans will excuse bullshit. They won't excuse, food poisoning from your, right? I mean, but they'll excuse blurry rubber stamp printing on your souvenir shopping bag that you made, or they'll excuse bad stitching on your souvenir, whatever, so, and you build this relationship, and I think that sometimes bands can learn a lot from retail business, and the opposite is true for sure.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask too, because I mean, everything you're saying, I feel like there's a big movement inside of our industry that done is better than perfect. So many people try to reach perfect, and just sometimes just doing it for the love of why you're doing it. That is awesome. When did you realize that you had this like need to do art, and then did it come before music or at the same time as music?
No, I started to do posters, hand drawing stuff, tracing stuff when I was like 10 or 11. I was in bands from the age of 10 or 11. I do posters. And then I did I do some screen printing? I had some clothes made. I was always doing other stuff, rubber stamps. So if I was sending somebody a letter, it was kind of arty and cool, and then there's a shirt over there I made with this rubber stamp. Just always trying to do different stuff. And I look around and I see all this stuff, and clearly something was going on. But it was early.
Were you inspired by anybody?
I think punk rock inspired me because I did think things needed to be perfect. And suddenly, and I was going down that road of playing drums for 4 hours a day, and trying to get to perfection, listening to the best drummers I could, and then punk comes along, and you've got this punk meme. Here's a chord, here's another, here's a third, start a band. Like, and I teach at a school of music now, and I keep telling them this stuff because in a school of music, it's here's a chord, here's another, here's a book with another 1,000, and in 5 years' time, we'll give you an exam and you'll get the next book. And then you can start a band in 10 years' time. And punk is like, go, you know? And I'd have these conversations with people. Oh, you're a drummer. What drew you to the drums? And this guy, John Langford, says to me, well, my friend Brian stole a drum kit and he gave it to me. Like, no lofty goals or like, well, throughout my family's history, somebody stole it. I'm like, all right, you know. So you just start to do stuff. But I still question my shit and myself all the time. At the start of the pandemic, I have a relationship with Dark Matter Coffee, a coffee company here in town who are insane. They're insane. My first meeting with them, I met them at South by Southwest in Austin, and they're from Chicago, and I'm from Chicago. But one of the reasons I like to go to South by or any place like that is you can form a really deep connection with someone who's from where you're from. It's weird. You could say we don't need to do that, but it's like, you're from Chicago, you know. And I said, look, I tweet every morning, get the fuck out of bed. And people keep telling me it should be coffees. We should do a coffee. I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll do whatever. Let's meet when we get back to Chicago. And it's the only meeting I've been to where I was empty-handed. Normally I'd have, like, here's a couple of shirts, here's this thing we did, here's that. And I sit down, because I thought we were going to taste coffee. And the first thing they bring me is a double vinyl 7-inch single from a house DJ called Derek Carter. Yeah, we did this. And here's a bottle of beer we did with the band Mastodon and Three Floyds Brewing and Coffee Beans. Here's a cassette we did with somebody else. They're working on a guitar pedal with Kirk Hammett from Metallica. And I'm like, what is going, you know, so as the lockdown starts to hit, I went up to they've got 7 shops in Chicago. I went to the one on Western to like, hey, how's it going? I don't know if I was trying to get, definitely get some coffee, but also they're so creative and crazy energy, you know. And they were slightly paralyzed, honestly, freaking out. 107 employees, wondering about healthcare. How do we keep this going? You know, how do we keep everybody with healthcare? And so it wasn't what I expected. And so I randomly had a $100 bill in my pocket. I put it in their employee fund. I'm like, there we go. By the time, it's a 10-minute drive to get back. By the time I get back here, I'm like, well, that was fucking useless. Like, it's not, $100 is not nothing. But to a company with 107 employees, I'm like, God, wow. So I went downstairs. And by this point, we'd started doing Get the Fuck Out of Bed coffee, which was very successful for them. They did coffee for my band Pigface. We did some other coffee. This Caffeine Kills Fascists, which was with Laura Jane Grace, did a 7-inch for that. But so I go downstairs and we have these craft brown paper bags, like coffee bags. And I called an artist who understood the Get the Fuck Out of Bed brand. I'm like, redo that, but do it in a font and have it say, stay the fuck inside. And we got another box of bags, and I printed 300 bags. And my two of my kids came down, and they're pinning the bags on the line, and I'm like, it was like, we're helping, you know, it was like World War II, you know, we're all in this together, you know. And then I looked at some of the bags, and some of them are nicely printed, Some of them were kind of shit. And I signed them all. You know, I might have put a rubber stamp and signed them. And then I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? The world's gone into crisis, and you're down here printing a fucking paper bag. Ooh, stay the fucking side. What, right? The same questions. I think it's some people will call it imposter syndrome, and I'm like, you had a good time with your kids. It felt like you were doing something. There's nothing to be done. The world's in crisis, But for some reason, I think I just wanted them. I wanted them to know I wanted to help more than give it right. So, so I went back up. It's like 4 days later. I went back up there with, look, I made these bags. And I'd heard Jesse, the owner of Dark Matter, say, I've got 107 employees and 90,000 pounds of coffee. We need some fucking money. So I'm like, well, look, I made these bags, and I don't know, like, I'm sorry. And I left. And they put up on their website, because they weren't selling coffee. The United Center, hotel, nobody was going to the places. Nobody needed coffee. The only thing they had was their website. And in the next 10 days, they paired, get the fuck out of bed, stay the fuck inside together. And they sold 300 combinations at 50 a pop, made $15,000. And it cost me the same amount of money that I put in the tip jar. I just added some badly printed, like, a command, the audacity to tell people, And even when people are like, well, should we stay inside? Who are they? I'm like, just stay the fuck inside, And that, I like to tell that story because I felt like an idiot, And then another part of that story is you get the story, right? And stories, I've got to tell you this other thing. So remind me to tell you about this story.
Okay.
But part of one of my presentations talks about, it's a TED talk somebody did about the power of stories. And I use it because I think sometimes I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of business people like, oh, hold on, Martin's made some art and he wants to tell a story. It's like, fuck off. This is money, or it's content, and content is money, So this TED talk, this guy he buys 200 items off of eBay for about $200. And it's a milk jug and a whatever. It's just bullshit. And he hires a bunch of his friends who are all journalists and whatever to attach a story to each object. So milk jug 75 cents becomes, this was my grandma's milk jug. And every morning I'd come down the stairs and I'd see the condensation on the outside of my grandma's in the kitchen sink. And so he took the 200 items he bought for $200, puts them on eBay with stories, and sells them. $8,000. Right. So stories have a power. So I get asked by an organization called In Place of War to speak at a global online conference called Creativity Conquers Conflict. And so then I'm telling the story of the brown paper bags to people in South America and all over the world who are thinking, having these same thoughts as me, like, all I've got is my silly rubber stamp postcards that I make with leaves and like, and so you get that. I don't do 300-pound paper bags to get the story, because you don't know what the story's going to be. But I'm now, my radar is always like, oh, this is the story, you know. Let me take a picture of that to remind myself about the story. We just had it happen. You got to tell me to shut up.
No, keep going. This is gold.
I just had it happen this weekend. And I tell students all the time, you don't know anything. And I'm not saying you're an idiot. I don't know either. I'm just trying to say we don't know. And so, and there's no straight line from A to B, because they think there is. Like, I want to work in a studio, and here's my plan. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. You know, I know a story of, I forget the woman's name. She got a job at a studio in New Orleans because she knew how to make cables. That seems like it's a straight line. But she also worked on motorcycles and was humble and starts cleaning motorcycles for a guy who happens to be Daniel Lanois, who has the biggest studio, you know. But so, oh God, now okay, so this weekend, we did a pop-up for Dark Matter Coffee. I had 3 students come and help me. I asked, there's 100 students down there, and I'm like, hey, you know, I'm doing a thing for Dark Matter Coffee with the museum. It's a museum pop-up for Dark Matter Coffee. Who would be interested in helping? You stay at the museum, I'll pay you a little bit, I'll provide you with some food. There's a fantastic Mexican place across on Morgan, whatever. Try and sexy it up, you know. And so the pop-up for Dark Matter, they had like 8 bands, an infused cocktail service, all kinds of food from different restaurateurs, 5 tattoo stations, free tattooing. I mean, anything you could think of to consume, pretty much, on them. It was this global celebration of coffee, right? So you might say, well, I don't like museums, I don't like Martin, and I don't like coffee. I'm not going. Well, so one of the students helping me was setting up the T-shirts, and here's Laura Jane Grace, and they're doing an acoustic set. They're there to sound check. So my students like talking with Laura, and then Laura goes and sound check, and he's like, I've been a fan for 15. I don't believe what just happened. I'm like, there you go, right? You know, and then so then we worked it out at the merch booth that one of the other students would take care of the booth while the other 2 students were down the front for the Lord Jane Grace's set. And then, you know, a couple more hours go by, and the student is freaking out again. I'm like, what's going on? It's like, Laura just asked if my band would open for them the next time they play Springfield. I'm like, what the fuck? And it turns out, so they were, you know, instead of like, can I get a signature or whatever, the student did what I would suggest. Like they helped Laura out to the car with their boxes of merchandise. And while they're talking, it comes up that there's a place in Springfield called Dumb Records, and but I think both bands have played there at one point. So the student shows Laura a picture. Yeah, well, we played there too. This is my band. Oh, you have a band? You got to open for me next time. I mean, it happened really organically. And you could never say, oh, you want to open for Laura Jane Grace, then you've got to come help move these boxes. Like, you know, you just don't know. But the more unknown shit you don't know that you do, the more collisions happen, the more coincidences happen, you know. And I was so happy because the story is great. So then I called Katie, who works with me, who loves this kind of shit. So now she's like, I'm crying, right? So, and she's like, let me know. She's out in California now. She wants to fly in to see the show where the student opens for Laura, right? Like, and now I'm telling this, right? So you just, the more you know that you don't know, like you just, and I don't know what kind of thinking that is. It's just let go and be nice, pick up a box, help, like stop being so transactional. Or if you are, know that when you give a gift of something, there will be a payout. Because I think some people, things are so tough, difficult and stressful. I think it helps them to understand, look, there'll be a payout. You just don't know what it is. You don't know when it's going to happen. And it might be something that you have to juggle to make into something that might help you. But there will be a payout. You'd be surprised by it. It's almost, it feels like almost magical thinking, but it's rooted in just doing shit and being open and yeah.
Well, so that kind of goes, I mean, you got really close to what, here at Market Media and also Promo EQP, two companies that Ian is helping run it. We talk all the time in promotional products. It's gotten so corporate that everything has to be perfectly 90 degrees. Everything's got to measure perfectly. But when you add that human element, it's imperfectly perfect. And I think that kind of, it's what you were talking about with all of the things that you've
all
done.
of it.
It's the imperfections that make it wantable.
Right. I'll tell you about these, but I've got to show you them as well. There's 5 posters in the gift shop that I did for a band called Sheep on Drugs, and they're all different. It's the most ridiculous, time-consuming thing I've ever heard of in my life, and I did them. So they're 4-color, and to a screen print you go, okay, yellow, red, blue, black. That's how we do that poster. Because this one poster's got like 7 yellow stars. But I only had 1 star. So I had to go 1, 2, 7 times with the yellow star. And then if I use that yellow star on another poster, the stars are in different places. And then steering wheels were randomly on there. And I'd change the color and the position. So this series of posters took a couple of days. And then we sent them to venues. They were stolen immediately because they were cool as hell. So it seems like a burden, because it kind of was. So we've got to make more of these posters to send. But somebody's stolen the posters. They've got their poster in their bedroom or somewhere. You got to hope they're going to come to the fucking show, So, but now we're on the phone. The venues are calling us. Normally, with the band, you're calling the venue. Is Steve there? Well, when will he be there? We got to talk about it. The venues are calling us. All the posters have been stolen. They're too good. And they'll, hey, would you make another 2 for us? Right, and how are tickets going? And don't forget, we need make sure there's hot water in the shower because we've got a long drive. We're getting what we need, courtesy of these insane fucking posters. And so, if you have to differentiate yourself, and it doesn't, and I think people in business think differentiation has to be the gold icing on the top of the gold cake. And that's one way of doing it. The luxury 7 nights in the and if you want to play that game, you better have an inheritance or a luxury benefactor or something. Or you can play this other game of just imagination, authentically homemade. And so some of our bags are smudged. Some stuff isn't quite right. We've got some scenery, probably some of those dot screen Madonnas. I think One of them has a big cigarette burn in it. Like, oh, I wonder whose cigarette that was. That could be an ogre from Skinny Puppy, or can't sell that. Right? That's the opposite, isn't it? If you go to Target and there's a cigarette burn, like, excuse me, there's not only are you going to give me this for free, I want $100 gift certificate just for the stress and anxiety of seeing a cigarette burn in it. But so I went to see a band in Minneapolis. They were from Canada. They were called, I don't know what they were called, and I knew they were traveling in a van. Tough time of year. Minneapolis, it was cold up there. And I went to the booth to buy something. And they had some all right T-shirts. But they had some little dolls that they made. And I've got my own voodoo dolls. But they had this kind of, almost like a gingerbread man. Shaped stuffed doll. And I picked one, they were $30, and I picked one up, and it was an absolute damn catastrophe. It looked like it had burst open, and somebody, using a different, highly visible thread, tried to fix it. And it's still, and they didn't do a good job of, there's still like stuffing coming out of the, and I bought that. It's like, there's two ways to be more supportive. One would be to give them $50 for the $30 doll, which I wasn't going to do. The other way would be to buy a doll that no one in their right mind would think of buying. But the reason for me to buy this was to show support. Here we go. I bought that one. And I've got a great slide of it. It's unbelievable. It's not like, I'm not telling a story. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. And I just imagined like, well, the girl who played bass in the band makes them. I'm like, well, they must have been having a terrible day, or are they like making these in the dark because they don't want to wake the singer up? Like, there's a reason that this is like this, and so as I said before, I don't know what business any of your listeners are in. You can't give someone food poisoning, right? But you can make this stuff real and human, and you can put your entire self into it, and it doesn't mean I'll never leave my garage now. I've turned it into an crochet embroidery center. Make 10 extra special ones, and we do things all the time to set price. Like, we don't know what something's worth. So I did, I'll play drums on your track. And we put it on eBay for $50. And then you start to have some fun with it. So it's risky is not the right word. But it's basically, look, I'm not making a judgment call about your music. If you want me to play on your song and you want to bid, who am I to say, hold on a minute? And it was up for 10 days, and ended up selling for $910. So like, that's more than I might have set that price at. But now it's like, well, all right, now we can say, hey, Martin will do drums. Previously, these have sold for $900, but we'll start the bidding at $500, whatever you want to do. But so we're fixing the price. And I get to say some funny stuff like, your song will still be shit, but the drums will be amazing. And so and there's a story. And then I had some students come up. From Milliken, some recording students. I go, this will be good. We're going to do some drums, because they're used to doing drums in a studio environment with an amazing Neve console. Like, no, we're going to record to 1/4-inch tape. What? What are you talking? Well, we used to use 1/4-inch tape machines. Investigate how to clean the heads using isopropyl alcohol and a Q-tip. and get an editing kit, which is like demagnetized razor blades. Like, students are like, what is going on? And we recorded to Pro Tools, Logic, micro cassette recorder. We filmed it, and then we did a few. And because it was a very productive, financially good day, that enabled us to gift a couple of drum tracks to people. And we shot some video. I actually sent a video of us making a drum track for someone who was recovering from surgery. And I get a note from the wife like, "Oh, are you fucking kidding me?" And but so I can't wander around giving gifts of drum tracks to people. But if we're having this productive day where we're making money, I can go the extra mile for the people who've paid money for a drum track. Give them an alternate. I think the person who paid $900, we took the head off of the snare. So here's the drum head Martin used while we were making it. So people are so careful about what's included in the deal. Well, here's 5 things that aren't included in the deal. Well, it's just a different mindset. If you're in a position to delight somebody, you better had, because that's not always simple, easy, or inexpensive. And if you can, you've got to, because you might not be able to, So yeah, it's becoming this different way of doing stuff. Yeah.
So you kind of made a joke and you just passed right over it, but it's something that I focus on now, especially in this new generation. You said when you find something that you like or something that's making you money, it doesn't mean that now I'm going to start a crochet business out of my basement and go full. So what is some advice you can give to the next generation or people that want to take what they love and turn it into what they do and avoid burnout? And how have you avoided burnout? Because you've been doing this for a while.
Oh, yeah. So right about the time of get the fuck out of bed, I think also I started to see whatever this new generation is. I don't know what talking about work-life balance. And I'm like, oh yeah, fuck off. That's work-life balance. Good luck, And then I'm like, well, hold on. I think, especially in the music business, any entrepreneurial game, it seems to me like you've got to front end load that equation with time and energy, and that sleep is the suffers. You need to be aware of it, but I don't know other than saying I need my weekends. Well, good luck, on an artist level. You can't complain about the lack of sleep at the front end, because if you're lucky, for one reason or another, because everybody wants you to do a remix, or it's you just come off stage in Texas and it's like there's a radio station in Norway and it's drive time in Norway, so I know you're exhausted, but we're gonna, hey, Norway, boo, boo, boo. I heard a country and western singer say, I was at this Atlanta airport 5 times yesterday. I'm like, well, why would you do that? Oh, connecting flights to go to, and everything was hubbed out of Atlanta. And it's like, yeah, careful what you wish for. So I tell students, for a couple of different reasons, like get 5 jobs. You need 5 jobs just to keep money coming in, so that when there's an opportunity to go do something, you can put a couple of $100s on airfare or to go to that dinner or whatever, and then you'll get used to dealing with the crazy equation of like, what pants am I wearing, literally and figuratively, what pants am I wearing at the moment, and also don't be afraid to have a customer service job, because customer service is huge and nobody has a fucking clue what that is anymore, and don't be afraid to put that on your resume, but then maybe then as whatever it is you're doing starts to come up a little bit, you can ditch one of the shit jobs that you don't like for the crochet thing, whatever. So I think one of the ways to avoid burnout is to make sure that you keep the loop open between yourself and the recipients of the extra stuff that you're doing. So it's not like, let's go with this crochet. I crocheted this mug warmer for somebody, I don't know, whatever. So you don't like put it in the window and then hope that, did anybody buy the hand crochet? Right, but you could do that if you want. You put it in your storefront, but then you through interacting with your customers, you know that one customer's favorite cover is pink or purple or pink and purple, and you hand crochet a mug warmer that's pink and purple and says their favorite word, that whatever it is, and you can only do this if you have a relationship with some of your customers, and you just give them that, and then they post a picture of it, and then people are like, what the hell, and now, where did you get that? And there you go, So absolutely, we had 5 drum tracks to do in a day, and you could say, well, that's a day's worth of work. That to do a track for the person who had surgery as a gift seems like I'm moving closer to burnout. I'm putting more work on my plate. But we actually used the metal shelves that are over there. We had those metal the guy in England is like an industrial. He bangs on pieces of metal. So we put that piece over there, and we shot video of us banging on this shit. The students got to bang on this shit, and I got to say, you're not just banging on any shit. This is test department. This was on stage with them, and this is the cage from the ministry tour. And then I got to share with them the tweet back from the guy's partner, like, you've just made, this is fantastic. So we were all involved in that. So sometimes the extra mile you go isn't exhaustion creating, it's the stuff that has you walking on air for the rest of the week. And the more of this stuff that you do, I think the more you can say to yourself, okay, I know what this next 3 hours is going to be, and decide to do it or not, and also decide who to do it with. So by inviting students up to come help with the recording session, I was giving them an experience for their resume. But I was also, when we did the thing for the person in England, it was a group, it was almost like a drum circle, healing drum circle, it was just this additional thing. And I as I'm talking this through with you, I think that maybe sometimes 5 years ago, I might have been, no, the last thing I need, I've got 5 drum tracks to do. The last thing I need is to also be supervising some students. But you get used to that. Maybe my talk with them beforehand. Now, don't do this. If somebody wanders in a session to play something, whoever it is, you don't like, hey, I've got a demo we could listen to. You've got to be careful about polluting people's thoughts and taking their focus away, and they start to learn the etiquette of the studio, and it gets better, So you'll get better at whatever it is. And it's different in every business, for every group of people. That's the one thing the museum has taught me, is that I can't predict what's important to anybody else. And that just, and I've done that here. I decide in my mind the hierarchy of, if you've only got half an hour, here's the 5 things I'm going to show you. And every single time somebody will go, oh, it's like, oh, there's a piece of paper on the floor. Look at that. Like, well, actually, I was just going to throw that in the trash. Oh my God. People find the corner of a flyer, a sticker, a bumper sticker, an ad from a newspaper. The least likely person finds the most unexpected thing and then tells me a story about what this meant to them. I'm like, holy fuck, that I can say to somebody else. So I think understanding that you don't know what's important about your business to people, you let them tell you, and you can do more of that.
Well, you led right into my last question, and because you talked about stories, you talked about the memorabilia, how it's all made human, and the stories are made human. Everything is that connection. What's the one thing in here you always take somebody to first?
There's a couple of things.
Okay.
But the easy thing, I want to tell you, make sure I tell you about that Killing Joke. It's a meal money sign-off sheet. Like, yeah, I'll tell you, yeah.
Okay.
But I've got this cassette tape. It was given to me by Trent Reznor in 1985, November 85. And we verified that date because I was in Cleveland with my band, Brian Brain. We had a song with a horn section. We didn't travel with a horn section. We couldn't. So I called my friend Tom in Cleveland. He plays trumpet. I'm like, could you put a horn section together? He's like, no, I can bring my friend who plays saxophone. Well, that was Trent. At a party after the show the next day, I'm in the laundry room and Trent gave me that cassette, which is the earliest Nine Inch Nails demos that we know of. Right? Good story so far, right? If there's a, like, holy shit, and there's a bunch of those things.
Yeah.
But, and here's the reason. I sold that cassette in 2010 on eBay. And you can see the listing. Pretty Hate Machine demos on eBay for a cent. So it got some attention, but I wasn't looking for attention. I was looking for some money. 4 kids, 2 buildings, right?
Yeah.
And I digitized the cassette.
Okay.
But sold it. And then in December of this year, I get an email. Are you interested in this cassette? And I thought, oh, here we go. Because I sold it for $1,400 15 years ago. And Nine Inch Nails has done nothing but grow, you know. And I thought, what's the next thing? $7,000. Oh, you know, whatever. And I'm like, oh, what are we talking? And the guy's like, what do you mean? What are we talking? I bought this cassette from you in 2010. Seems like it belongs in the museum, doesn't it?
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that has happened with several different things here. And so then if I had to sit down, I don't know we're coming up to 3 years this weekend.
Okay.
I don't know on any given day you could sit me down like, do you want to keep moving forwards? You want to keep growing this? And I don't know that the answer was always yes. But if you sat me down every single day and said, can you stop doing this? The answer is always no, I can't stop doing it. And it's for those reasons. And I like to tell those stories because you never know that email you send me or anybody else with a cassette that maybe you don't care about anymore. Maybe it's important to you, you know. You never know the impact of the thing that you're going to do, you know. So, and that's all part of the circle of stuff. Maybe that's one of the reasons I gifted that drum track to the guy in England, you know. I don't know. Yeah. So, and then the other thing that happens, I point to this because it illustrates something else. Signing for $10 of pizza money. You know, and of course, because I had the label and I managed Killing Joke for a while, I might have 50 of those. I probably have 200 pig faces. Like a good tour manager will always make you sign for stuff. Otherwise, the guitarist's going to be, I never got my $10, that makes $50 altogether. And, whatever. It's like pirates on the high seas. But so I framed that one. That's New York, 1991, Killing Joke. And then I found the pass that's in the bottom right corner from that night. And then this guy, Chris Mackenzie's in here, is like, hold on. He starts going through his bag, pulls out the ticket from that night.
Oh, no.
And then we found 4-track live recordings from that night. So now, and that it's almost like you put a thing up and things start to magnetize to it. And then, so then that begins the next part of this, which is the digitizing of all of this stuff, so that these things can be accessible to people, so they can type out or record their own story, so the oral history part goes on there. But the other thing, because I get, maybe any of your listeners who are running a business, like, we didn't know what this was. We're starting to know what it is 3 years in. But at some points I thought like an Airbnb would underwrite the cost. And I do that, but I'm more so do that as a gift. We had a couple come over from Ireland, and they went to see Ministry and stayed in a nice hotel downtown. I'm like, well, you're welcome to spend the night at the museum. They fucking loved it. Our very first founder, 0001, drives up from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'll let her spend the night. And but as more and more stuff has arrived, it's more and more awesome, and I'm less and less comfortable doing that. I let bands stay occasionally, and that had its own reward. A band called Def Club stayed, which is the singer from a band called The Locust, and I questioned that as well, like, but everybody's been very respectful. And then I think after Def Club stayed, Nick Zinner from the Yeah Yeah Yeahs sent me a message like, I heard about the museum, can we come and see? And I had a blast with those guys. So I still do that. I give that as a gift. We're still trying to find the formula of what this is, have it be a non-museum, but operate like a museum, let people touch things, even though that touching might destroy things eventually. We're still trying to find what it is, and we're just reacting to these experiments. So at no point am I making 5,000 somethings because it's cheaper. That's another reason to make stuff yourself. So I might make 10, and if people like those, I might make another 10 or another 20. And then if people keep liking those, I might farm those, like have somebody else make them, But the process of finding this stuff is organic and gradual and homemade.
I walked in and my mouth dropped, and I don't know half of the bands that are in here, but Ian's been great enough to fill me in on some of the culture and that stuff. I mean, obviously, 9 Inch Nails, because they went super, right? So, and Ministry, heard of them too. So, fantastic. Love
Sex Pistols, Johnny Rotten.
I know Sex Pistols. Yeah, you kind of have to, right?
I mean, there's a span. There's a span of stuff. It's crazy. Yeah.
But this is, without it sounding like it's too much nostalgia, like the product and the pictures and everything, this is your life. This is what you did. So how crazy is that for you to walk into this place and see this?
Well, crazy. And sometimes it's difficult. Geordie, the guitarist in Killing Joke, passed last year. I was best man at his wedding. I mean, sometimes I just sit quietly, But the nostalgia thing could have been very dangerous, like I'm 65 in August, and I think it would be easy to see like, and then Johnny Rotten said this, and then Trent Reznor, but instead, and you'll see the bags up front as an homage to a band called Dirty Column. They released an album in 1980 with a sandpaper sleeve. So you pull it out of your record collection player, you put the album back in, and you do that. Like 3 years later, you've destroyed somebody's Duran Duran, whatever's next to Dirty Column, right? So I'm like, oh my God. But I think I was sitting around here and I'm thinking, all right, Martin, so I guess this is the next part of my life. I'll be looking backwards and I had this Dirty Column album in there, and I'm like, and Dark Matter make a really nice coffee for the museum. I'm like, I wonder if I could screen print the museum logo onto sandpaper and then glue it onto the coffee bag. And I don't think anybody is screen printed onto sandpaper with good reason. And it's spectacular. And so we do that, and then we put their bag inside of our bag, we sign and number it, and it's like, it's this tactile experience. It pays homage to Dirty Column. In the process of that, as I'm typing up the description for the back of the Dark Matter really nicely printed bag, like, well, has anybody else done anything like this? Well, it turns out Guy Debord, a French situationist in 1959, released a book called Memoir with a sandpaper sleeve that would destroy the books. So I think they were inspired by him. We get to tell the story, and I get to sit here going, this is just the next phase of my creativity. It's not looking backwards. And in the last 2 weeks, we had these 3 people came in. I'm like, where are you from? And from south of Louisville. I thought, oh, here we go. This dad has dragged his kids in here. Like, how am I going to keep this entertaining for the, we've got hot chocolate in the thing, thinking all this stuff. And the guy's like, I don't know. My daughter is like, I'm like, what? 16. She's dragged him, right? It's her 16th birthday. So I'm like, Julie, people who run the gift shop, I'm like, Julie, go and get a cake. So she had her 16th birthday here. Whoever else was on the tour was singing. And so 2 weeks later, last week, she's on the Wax Tracks thread. I'm sorry, I can't stop humble bragging about my, there we are. I'm there with a spoon and, And last Monday, this 12-year-old girl was in here, school project. And so I'm doing an interview with a 12-year-old girl about all of this stuff, So it's like that. Once again, nobody knows shit about anything. You could say, okay, this is going to be for people 50 and older, No, fucking 12 and 16-year-olds last week, and I think we're just starting to see where this is going,
It's a look back and a future. That is awesome.
It's kind of I came up through punk in England, and I saw what was going on, and it was like I saw stuff, was frightened, excited, all this thing, and I witnessed punk. The here's a chord, here's another, the antagonism from the old school, the technically proficient looking down their noses at just another form of art. And so, but going through that enabled me to see it when it was happening with industrial music in Chicago. And I'm moving there. I'm jumping into them. Well, I don't know what it is. I'm jumping into this shit. And I think that's given me, and maybe some of the improvisational nature of some of the music I make collaboratively has given me a more what the fuck feel to the unfolding of what my business is becoming. Whereas if I hadn't had that, hey, the 6 new people coming on stage with now, that being comfortable with the changing landscape of a song on a stage, right? I think that gives me a different attitude. To maybe somebody who's decided over a 5-year period that their business is going to be yellow cupcakes, and people are like, yeah, I know, but when you're going to do that red cake for that person, and the icing got mixed and there was the green cupcakes. People love those cakes. But I'd be like, well, make more green. Whereas somebody else might be, no. It's we are called yellow cupcakes, right? We can't make green. To me, that would be like, we've lost our mind. Today it's green. I thought you were yellow. We were. Now we're not. But you could see where somebody who'd spent time on a business plan might, or done some research. It's also the merch booth at a venue. You're looking every day. You're reiterating your merch booth. Well, we thought people would like the keychain. They love this. Get more of those. And you've got to rethink your merch booth each day. And so, yeah. This has been fun to talk about all of this
Martin,
stuff.
This is awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking your time out today and for letting us come in here and record in here. This is really cool. I really do appreciate it, man.
You're welcome.
This is awesome.
Thank you for listening to Martin's story. Check back next month for another episode of unBRNDed.